Hello, welcome to Imagine Love Stories. I'm Danny. The forest hummed with energy as wolves from neighboring packs gathered under the glow of the full moon. Aiden stood at the edge of the Silver Fang pack's territory, heart pounding as he watched the wolves mingle. His hands fidgeted with the hem of his tunic, a nervous habit he couldn't seem to break. Why are you even here? Aiden sneered. Liam, a broad-shouldered beta who loved to make Aiden the butt of every joke. This gathering is for wolves of worth, alphas and betas, not pathetic unmated omegas like you. Aiden clenched his jaw but said nothing. His role in the pack was clear: quiet, invisible and compliant. Omegas weren't meant to stand out, and he had no intention of causing trouble. Still, the venom in Liam's voice stung as the moon rose higher. The tension in the air thickened. This was no ordinary gathering, it was the annual moon binding ceremony, where unmad wolves could find their destined mates. Aiden had no illusions about his chan. The mate bond was rare for omegas, especially one like him. He was small, unimposing, and in the eyes of his pack utterly insignificant. He lingered near the edge of the gathering, scanning the crowd, his gaze locked on a group of wolves from the Blackstone pack, their dark cloaks making them stand out against the lighter tones of the Silver Fang wolves. At their center stood a figure who exuded raw power and authority. Kai, even among his pack, Kai was an enigma, tall and broad-shouldered, with sharp features and piercing gray eyes. He looked every bit the alpha he was destined to be, but his stoic expression and distant demeanor set him apart. The other wolves seemed to orbit him, acknowledging his dominance without question. Aiden quickly averted his gaze, hoping to go unnoticed, but as the ceremonial drums began to play, a strange sensation washed over him, a warmth spreading through his chest, pulling him forward. His heartbeat quick and his breath hit. Something was happening, something he couldn't control. The air around him seemed to shift, and when he looked up he froze. Kai was staring directly at him. Kai felt it the moment he stepped into the clearing, the strange magnetic pull that seemed to settle in his chest and tug him toward the Silver Fangs. He had attended these ceremonies before, always out of obligation, but never had he felt anything like this. It was disorienting and infuriating. Alphas didn't lose control, and yet here he was unable to tear his gaze away from the Omega. Standing awkwardly at the edge of the crowd, he was different. Unlike the bold and polished omegas who typically vied for his attention, this one seemed to shrink in on himself as though he wished to disappear. But there was something about him, something unassuming yet undeniable. The bond was unmistakable. Alpha murmured, Marcus, Kai's second in command, leaning closer. You're staring. Kai straightened, forcing his features into a mask of indifference. Stay here, he ordered, stepping forward. As he approached, the crowd parted instinctively, sensing his authority. The Omega stiffened but didn't back away. Kai stopped a few feet away, his sharp eyes studying the smaller wolf. He caught the faintest whiff of lavender and honey, a scent so intoxicating it made his head swim. What's your name? Kai's voice was low, commanding. The Omega's lips parted, but no sound came out. At first he swallowed hard, his eyes darting to the ground. Aiden, he finally managed, his voice barely above a whisper. Kai felt the bond snap into place like a taut string being pulled to its limit. It wasn't just attraction, it was destiny. This Omega was his mate, but destiny was never simple. You, a sharp voice broke through the tension. Liam, the same beta who had mocked Aiden, ear stepped forward with a sneer. This can't be right, an Omega like him for you. Kai's eyes darkened and the temperature in the clearing seemed to drop. Do you doubt the moon's will? He asked, his tone icy. Liam faltered, his bravado slipping under Kai's piercing gaze. No, Alpha, of course not. Good. Kai's gaze flicked back to Aiden, softer now. Come with me. And hesitated, fear and uncertainty wearing with the undeniable pull of the bond. Finally he nodded, allowing Kai to lead him away from the prying eyes of the crowd, away from the gathering. The forest was quieter, the moonlight casting long shadows across the ground. Kai stopped near a stream, turning to face Aiden. I know this is sudden, Kai began, his voice gentler now, but you feel it too, don't you? The bond. Aiden nodded reluctantly. I don't understand why. I'm just an Omega. There must be some mistake. There's no mistake, Kai said firmly. The moon doesn't make mistakes. Aiden looked away, his arms wrapping around himself. My pack won't accept this. They'll think I'm unworthy of you. Kai stepped closer, his voice low but fierce. Let them think what they want. You're my mate, Aiden. That makes you more than worthy. For the first time Aiden allowed himself to meet Kai's gaze, and in that moment the fear and doubt began to ebb. There was something in those gray eyes, a promise of protection, of belonging, of something he had never known, but as the wind shifted, carrying with it the faintest scent of danger. Both wolves tensed. Kai's eyes narrowed. We're not alone, the bond had brought them together, but it was clear their union would be anything but easy. Aiden stiffened at Kai's words, his sharp eyes darting into the shadowy expanse of the forest. The scent Kai had caught, a musky, acrid smell tinged with aggression, was faint but unmistakable. They were being watched. Stay close, Kai murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. His stance shifted slightly, ready to spring into action at the first sign of danger. Aiden swallowed hard, his heart pounding in his chest. He felt vulnerable, untrained for combat. Unlike the alphas and betas who could handle threats without flinching, he instinctively stepped closer to Kai, the pull of their bond easing some of the fear knotting in his chest. From the shadows a low growl echoed, followed by the soft crunch of leaves underfoot. Kai's sharp eyes caught movement, a pair of yellow eyes gleaming in the darkness. Show yourself, Kai commanded, his voice laced with authority. For a moment the forest was still, then a rogue wolf emerged from the underbrush, its hulk frame and matted fur marking it as one of the dangerous outliers that plagued the packs behind it. More rogues appeared, forming a loose circle around them. Aiden's breath hitched. There's too many. Quiet, Kai cut in, his tone calm but firm. Stay behind me, the lead rogue sneered, shifting into his human form, a wiry man with scars across his chest and a cruel smirk on his face. The great alpha heir of Blackstone, he drawled. And what's this, a little Omega? Kai's growl rumbled deep in his throat. You're trespassing, the rogue chuckled, unfazed. We don't follow your pack's rules, but I have to admit this is an interesting pairing, an alpha and an Omega. He sniffed the air, his eyes narrowing. Oh, mates. Aiden felt the weight of the rogue's gaze on him and shrank back instinctively, grabbing the back of Kai's shirt. Kai stepped forward, his presence commanding, as he placed himself firmly between Aiden and the rogue. Leave now or I'll make you regret it, the rogue smirked. Oh, we're not going anywhere. In fact, I think we'll take that Omega off your hands. He'll fetch a good price in the black market. That was the last straw. With a snarl, Kai shifted into his wolf form, a massive creature with jet black fur and piercing gray eyes. The rogues hesitated, clearly not expecting the alpha to escalate so quickly, but their leader growled, signaling the attack. The clearing erupted into chaos. Kai launched himself at the nearest rogue, his powerful jaws clamping down on the wolf's shoulder. With a sickening crunch, Aiden scrambled back, pressing himself against a tree. As the fight unfolded before him, the rogues were relentless, but Kai was a force of nature. His movements were fluid and precise, his strength unmatched. He took down one rogue after another, his black fur slick with the blood of his enemies, but there were too many of them. Aiden's eyes darted around, panic rising in his chest. He couldn't just stand there and watch Kai get overwhelmed. Despite his fear, something primal stirred within him, a deep instinct he couldn't explain. Stop, Aiden cried out, his voice ringing through the chaos. To his surprise, the fighting slowed. The rogues hesitated, their movements faltering as they turned to look at him. Even Kai froze, his ears twitching as he glanced back at his mate. Aiden stepped forward, his hands trembling but his voice steady. You don't have to do this. Leave now and no one else has to get hurt. The rogues exchanged uneasy glances. There was something about Aiden's voice, a calming, almost hypnotic quality that seemed to affect them. The lead Raj growled, shaking off the strange sensation. What are you doing? He snapped at his pack attack, but they didn't move. Instead they began to retreat, their aggression dampened by the invisible force emanating from Aiden. Even the leader seemed unnerved, though he refused to show it. This isn't over, he spat, before shifting back into his wolf form and disappearing into the forest with the others as the last rogue vanished. Aiden's knees buckled and he collapsed to the ground, his body trembling from the adrenaline rush. Kai shifted back into his human form, rushing to his mate's side. Aiden, he said, his voice laced with concern. Are you hurt? Aiden shook his head, his breathing ragged. I don't know what just happened. Kai frowned, his sharp eyes scanning Aiden for any signs of injury. That wasn't nor they listened to. You like you had some kind of power over them. I didn't mean to, Aiden whispered, his voice shaky. I couldn't let them hurt you. Kai's expression softened, and he cued Aiden's face with his hands. You're incredible, Aiden, you saved us. Aiden's cheeks flushed, but he couldn't bring himself to meet Kai's gaze. I'm just an Omega, he mumbled. Kai tilted his Head forcing Aiden to look at him. You're my mate and that makes you stronger than. You know. For the first time Aiden allowed himself to believe it. Kai led Aiden back to the safety of the Blackstone Pack's territory, his arm firmly around Aiden's shoulders, the tension in the air. Lingered the scent of blood and fear clinging to both of them. Aiden remained silent as they walked, his mind reeling from what had just happened, the way the rogues had hesitated, the way his voice had carried an undeniable weight. He had never experienced anything like it before. Omegas weren't supposed to have power, they were nurturers, peacekeepers. Submissive by nature, and yet something within him had stirred and commanded even the most hardened of wolves. They reached a small cabin tucked away near the heart of Kai's territory. It was modest but cozy, with soft light spilling from the windows and the faint scent of cedar wood in the air. Kai opened the door and gestured for Aiden to enter. Sit, Kai said, his voice still tinged with the authority of an alpha, though softer now. I'll get you something to drink. Aiden sank into the worn leather couch, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. His eyes wandered around the room, taking in the sparse yet comforting decor. This wasn't what he had expected from the future alpha of Black Star. It was simple, lived in a stark contrast to the cold, imposing pack house he had grown up in. Kai returned with 2 steaming mugs of tea, handing one to Aiden before sitting across from him. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken questions. What happened back there? Kai finally asked, his gray eyes studying Aiden intently. Aiden hesitated, staring down at the mug in his hands. I don't know, he admitted. It was like something took over. I didn't think, I just felt it. Kai leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. That wasn't normal, Aiden. Rogues don't back down that easily, especially not from an Omega. The word made Aiden flinch. Maybe it was just a fluke, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. It wasn't a fluke, Kai said firmly. There's something different about you. Aiden shook his head, his fingers tightening around the mug. I'm just an Omega, he repeated, as if saying it enough times would make it true. Kai sighed, his expression softening. He reached out, placing a hand over Aiden's. You're more than that, Aiden. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm going to help you figure it out. Whatever this is, you're not facing it alone. The sincerity in Kai's voice made Aiden's chest ache. No one had ever looked at him like this before, with such unwavering belief and determination. For the first time in his life he felt seen, not as a burden but as someone who mattered. Why? Aiden whispered, his eyes meeting Kai's. Why are you doing this for me? Kai's thumb brushed over the back of Aiden's hand, sending a shiver down his spine. Because you're my mate, he said simply, and I protect what's mine. Over the following days Kai kept Aiden close, unwilling to risk another attack. He introduced Aiden to his pack, and while most were welcoming, some regarded the Omega with skepticism. Omega rarely mated with alphas, let alone one as powerful as Kai. Aiden did his best to keep a low profile, but whispers followed him wherever he went. He could feel the weight of their judgment, the unspoken questions hanging in the air. What made him so special? Why had the moon chosen him? One evening Kai called a meeting with his pack elders in the grand hall of the Blackstone estate. Aiden sat quietly beside him, feeling out of place among the seasoned warriors and advisors. The rogues are becoming more organized, Kai began, his tone commanding. Their attack during the moon binding ceremony wasn't random. They're targeting us for a reason. The eldest of the council, a grizzled wolf named Garrick, leaned forward. And the Omega? He asked, his sharp eyes fixed on Aiden. What role does he play in this? Aiden shifted uncomfortably under the scrutiny, but Kai was quick to defend him. Aiden is my mate, he said, his voice firm. Whatever the rogues wanted has nothing to do with him. Are you sure about that? Garrick pressed. What happened during the attack was unusual. Kai's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, Aiden spoke up. I don't know why they backed down, he said, his voice steady despite his nerves, but I won't let anyone use it to hurt this pack. The room fell silent, the elders exchanging uncertain glances. Finally Garrick nodded. Very well, but we must remain vigilant. If the rogues are after him, we need to be prepared. After the meeting, Kai and Aiden returned to the cabin. Aiden was quiet, his thoughts racing as he tried to make sense of everything. Kai watched him closely, sensing his unease. You did well back there, Kai said, breaking the silence. Aiden looked up at him, his eyes filled with doubt. Did I? They don't trust me, Kai, and honestly I don't blame them. Kai stepped closer, his hands resting on Aiden's shoulders. They'll come around, but it doesn't matter what they think. I Trust you Aiden, that's all that matters. Aiden wanted to believe him, but a nagging voice in the back of his mind refused to be silenced. There was something about him, something he didn't understand yet, and until he did, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was a danger to everyone around him. The days turned into weeks and Aiden began to settle into his new life within the Blackstone path. Despite the lingering whispers and weary glances from some, others welcomed him warmly, seeing in him the quiet strength that had captured Kai's heart. But beneath the surface, the tension between the couple and the pack elders persisted. The rogue attack had left everyone on edge, and the mystery of Aiden's abilities loomed over them all like a shadow. Aiden spent most of his time helping with pack duties, organizing supplies, assisting in the pack nursery, and tending to the sick or injured. It was a role he found comfort in, one that reminded him of his purpose as an Omega. But even in these quiet moments he couldn't shake the feeling that something within him was stirring, waiting to be discovered. One evening Kai found him sitting by the river that bordered their territory, his legs dangling over the edge of the dock. The setting sun painted the water in hues of golden crimson, and Aiden's profile was illuminated in the soft light. "You've been quiet lately," Kai said, sitting beside him. Aiden glanced at him, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Just thinking about everything," Aiden admitted. "The rogues, the ceremony, whatever it is, that's different about me." He hesitated, then added, "I don't want to be a burden to you or the pack." Kai frowned, reaching out to tilt Aiden's chin so their eyes met. "You're not a burden," he said firmly. "You're my mate, Aiden. Whatever this is, we'll figure it out together." The sincerity in Kai's voice sent a wave of warmth through Aiden's chest. He nodded, leaning into Kai's touch. "I just wish I knew where to start." Kai's gaze shifted to the horizon where the moon was beginning to rise. "The pack archives might have something," he suggested. "Our history is filled with stories of unusual bonds and powers. It's worth looking into." The next day Kai led Aiden to the pack archives, a sprawling underground chamber filled with ancient scrolls, books and artifacts. The scent of aged parchment and leather filled the air, and the faint glow of enchanted torches lit the cavernous space. "This is incredible," Aiden murmured, his eyes wide as he took in the sight. Kai smiled. "My ancestors believed in preserving our history. Every alpha adds to the archives. During their reign they spent hours combing through the texts, searching for anything that might explain Aiden's abilities. Most of the records detailed battles, alliances and traditions, but occasionally they stumbled upon tales of extraordinary wolves, alphas who could command the elements, betas with unparalleled strength, and even omegas who possessed rare mystical powers." "Here," Kai said, pulling a worn scroll from the shelves. He unrolled it carefully, revealing an intricate illustration of a wolf with glowing eyes surrounded by symbols. "The Omega's gift." Aiden leaned closer, his brow furrowing as he read the text aloud. "It is said that once in a generation the moon blesses an Omega with a gift, a power meant to balance the strength of the alphas and guide the pack through times of darkness." Kai's gaze flicked to Aiden. "That sounds a lot like what happened during the attack." Aiden shook his head. "This can't be me." "I'm not." "You are," Kai interrupted gently. "Whether you realize it or not, you have a role to play in all of this." As they continued reading, they discovered that the gift came with its own challenges. The Omega chosen by the moon often faced trials that tested their courage, loyalty and bond with their mate. It was a responsibility that required strength not just of the body but of the heart. Aiden swallowed hard, the weight of the revelation settling over him. "What if I can't handle it?" he whispered. Kai placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You can and you won't. Don't face it alone." The first sign of Aiden's gift came a week later. He and Kai were patrolling the northern border of the territory when they stumbled upon a rogue scout. The wolf was young, barely more than a pup, and his eyes were wide with fear as he cowered before them. "Please," the scout begged, his voice trembling. "I didn't mean to cross the border. I was just spying," Kai growled, his sharp gaze narrowing. "No, I swear," the scout cried, his voice cracking. Before Kai could press further, Aiden stepped forward, his eyes softening. "What's your name?" he asked gently. The scout hesitated, glancing nervously at Kai before answering. "Jared." Aiden crouched to meet Jared's gaze, his voice calm and steady. "Why are you here, Jared?" Jared's shoulders slumped and he let out a shaky breath. "My pack, they forced me. If I didn't do what they said, they would have killed me." Aiden's heart ached at the raw in the boy's voice. He reached out, placing a hand on Jared's shoulder. "You're safe now," he said softly. As he spoke, a faint glow surrounded Aiden, and Jared's breathing steadied. The boy's fear seemed to melt away, replaced by a sense of calm and trust. Kai watched in awe, his protective instincts momentarily overridden by the sight of his mate's gift in action. When Jared finally relaxed, Aiden turned to Kai. "We can't punish him for something he was forced to do," he said firmly. "He needs our help." Kai nodded slowly, his respect for Aiden growing with each passing moment. "All right," he said, "we'll take him in, but he'll have to earn the pack's trust." Aiden smiled, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. For the first time he began to see his gift not as a burden but as a chance to make a difference. The Blackstone pack began integrating Jared into their fold, but it wasn't easy. Many wolves eyed the rogue with suspicion. Their instincts warned them against trusting an outsider. Aiden took it upon himself to mentor Jared, sensing the boy's desperation to prove himself. Jared quickly grew attached to Aiden, following him like a shadow, though the boy had a sharp tongue and a mischievous streak. His loyalty to Aiden was unwavering. It wasn't long before Jared began to open up, sharing pieces of his past. A rogue pack that used fear and violence to keep their members in line, an alpha who ruled with cruelty, and a mother who had sacrificed herself to protect him. Aiden listened patiently, his heart aching for the boy. He saw in Jared a reflection of his own struggles, someone who had been underestimated and mistreated, yet still found the courage to survive. One afternoon, as they worked together in the peas garden, Jared glanced at Aiden with a hesitant expression. "You really believe in me, don't you?" Jared asked, his voice uncertain. Aiden smiled warmly. "Of course I do. You're stronger than you think." Jared, the boy's eyes softened and he nodded. "Thanks, Aiden, for everything." As Jared settled into life with the Blackstone pack, the threat of the rogues loomed ever closer. Scouts reported increased activity along the borders, and several small skirmishes had left the pack on edge. Kai called a meeting with his top warriors and advisors, determined to prepare for whatever was coming. Aiden sat beside him, his presence a quiet but steadying force. "We can't keep waiting for them to strike," Garrick said, his gruff voice cutting through the tension. "We need to take the fight to them." Kai shook his head. "We don't have enough information. Attacking blindly would only weaken us." "And what if they attack first?" Garrick countered. Aiden spoke up, his voice calm but firm. "We need to understand their motives. This isn't just about territory. They're after something specific." The room fell silent, all eyes on Aiden. He met their gazing, is steadily refusing to back down. "What do you suggest?" Kai asked, his tone encouraging. Aiden hesitated, then said, "We need to capture one of their leaders, someone who can give us answers." Garrick snorted. "Easier said than done. It's risky," Kai admitted, his eyes narrowing in thought. "But it might be our best chance." Aiden's heart swelled with pride at Kai's trust in him, but the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on his shoulders. The plan was set in motion. A week later, Aiden, Kai and a small group of trusted warriors ventured into rogue territory under the cover of darkness. The air was thick with tension, the forest alive with the sounds of nocturnal creatures. Aiden stayed close to Kai, his senses heightened by the danger surrounding them. His heart raced, but he pushed his fear aside, focusing on the task at hand. They reached a clearing where a group of rogues had set up camp. From the shadows, Kai signaled to his warriors and they moved into position. Aiden watched as the P's Beta Marcus led the charge, his powerful form cutting through the rogues like a blade. The battle was swift and brutal, the Blackstone wolves overwhelming their enemies with precision and strength. Amid the chaos, Aiden spotted their target, a rogue alpha. Barking orders from the edge of the clearing, without thinking he darted toward the alpha, his instincts guiding him. "Aiden, wait!" Kai shouted, but it was too late. The rogue alpha turned just as Aiden approached, his eyes narrowing in recognition. "You!" he snarled. Aiden froze, his heart pounding. There was something disturbingly familiar about the alpha's gaze, as if he knew Aiden on a deeper level. Before the alpha could attack, Kai intervened, his powerful form slamming into the rogue with a feral growl. The two alphas clashed, their strength shaking the ground beneath them. Aiden watched in awe and fear as Kai fought with a ferocity that left no doubt he was protecting his mate. But even as the rogue alpha fell, Aiden couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The captured rogue alpha, a wiry man named Darius, was brought back to Blackstone territory and confined in the Pax's dungeon. Kai and Aiden stood outside the cell, watching as Darius paced like a caged animal. The rogue's eyes glinted with malice, but there was a strange current of amusement in his expression. "Why were you targeting us, Kai?" demanded Darius chuckled darkly. It's not about your pack Alpha, it's about him. He nodded toward Aiden, his grin widening. Aiden stiffened, his stomach twisting. Why me? He asked, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at him. You really don't know, do you? Darius said, his tone mocking. You're special, Omega. The moon chose you for something big, and my pack isn't the only one wants a piece of it. Kai's growl filled the room, his hand clenching into a fist. If you so much as look at him, I'm not the one you should worry about, Darius interrupted. There are others stronger, smarter, and they're coming for him. Aiden's blood ran cold as Darius's words sank in. He turned to Kai, his voice barely above a whisper. What if he's right? What if this isn't just about us? Kai's expression softened and he placed a reassuring hand on Aiden's shoulder. Then we fight, he said firmly. Together Aiden lay awake in Kai's arms that night, the rogue Alpha's cryptic words replaying in his mind. He stared out the window where the full moon cast a silvery glow over the room. There was something unsettlingly magnetic about its light, as though it were calling to him. Kai stirred beside him, his arms tightening protectively. You're restless, he murmured, his deep voice heavy with sleep. I can't stop thinking about what Darius said, Aiden admitted. What if Hune's right? What if this is bigger than us? Kai propped himself up on one elbow, his piercing gaze locking onto Aiden's. Then we face it together. I won't let anything happen to you. His words should have comforted Aiden, but a strange feeling tugged at his chest, a mix of fear, determination, and something deeper, more primal, as if answering an unspoken question. The moonlight seemed to intensify, filling the room with a radiant glow. Aiden sat up, his breath catching in his throat. Kai, do you feel that? He whispered. Kai frowned, his senses on high alert. Feel what? Before Aiden could respond, the room was bathed in an otherworldly light. The air grew thick with energy, and Aiden felt a surge of warmth spreading through his body. It was as if the moon itself had reached out to touch him. Kai sat up fully, his protective instincts kicking in. Aiden, what's happening? I don't know, Aiden said, clutching his chest. The warmth grew stronger, spreading to his limbs and filling him with a strange sense of power. He gasped as visions flooded his mind, images of wolves, forests, and a radiant figure cloaked in moonlight. When the light finally faded, Aiden collapsed into Kai's arms, trembling but unharmed. Kai held him tight, his voice filled with concern. Aiden, talk to me. Are you okay? Aiden nodded weakly. I think the moon blessed me. The next morning Kai summoned the pack's elder, a wise wolf named Elder M, to their court. M was a repository of ancient knowledge, and if anyone could shed light on Aiden's experience, it was him. Elder Male arrived with a stack of weathered scrolls, his sharp eyes studying Aiden with a mix of curiosity and reverence. You say the moonlight touched you? My asked, his voice raspy but steady. Aiden nodded, recounting the experience in detail. May listened intently, his expression growing more serious with each word. This is not unheard of, the elder said at last. There are ancient tales of the moon choosing certain omegas for a higher purpose. They are said to carry a unique power, one that can unite or destroy. Kai's jaw tightened. And what does this mean for Aiden? M hesitated, then opened one of the scrolls, revealing a faded depiction of a wolf bathed in moonlight. The chosen omega is said to be a bridge between worlds, a link between the earthly and the divine. They possess the ability to strengthen their pack, to heal and to protect, but their power also makes them a target. Aiden's stomach churned. A target for what? For those who seek to control or destroy the balance, M replied gravely. Kai's protective instincts flared. Then we'll protect him. No one will touch Aiden. I nodded, but added a warning. The prophecy also speaks of a great trial, a test that will determine whether the chosen omega fulfills their destiny or falls to darkness. In the weeks that followed, Aiden began to notice changes within himself. His senses grew sharper, his reflexes faster, and his connection to the pack deepened. He could feel their emotions, their fears, and their hopes as if they were his own. Kai insisted on keeping a close watch on him, refusing to let Aiden out of his sight for long. But even as Kai's protectiveness comforted him, Aiden couldn't ignore the growing weight of responsibility. One evening, while training with Jared, Aiden's new abilities manifested in a startling way. Jared had been struggling to keep up, his frustration evident. Aiden reached out instinctively, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. It's okay, Aiden said softly. You're doing great. To his surprise, a surge of warmth flowed from his hand into Jared, who gasped in shock. I feel different, Jared said, his eyes wide. Stronger words spread quickly, and soon the entire pack was buzzing with Curiosity and Aiden's ability to channel energy and strengthen others became a source of hope, but it also drew unwanted attention. The rogues began launching more frequent attacks, their desperation to capture Aiden growing evident. Each battle tested the pack's strength, but with Aiden by their side they held their ground. One fateful night, as the pack celebrated a hard-won victory, a chilling howl echoed through the forest. The RRY ceased and every wolf tensed their instincts, screaming danger. Kai and Aiden exchanged a glance. Their bond unspoken but strong. Together they stepped outside the pack. Following closely, a figure emerged from the shadows, a tall, imposing wolf with eyes that burned like embers. His presence exuded power and malice, and the air seemed to grow colder around him. "I am Fenrir," the stranger announced, his voice a low growl, "and I have come for the chosen Omega." The pack bristled, their growls filling the night. "You'll have to go through me first," Kai snarled, stepping forward. Fenrir smirked gladly. The confrontation marked the beginning of a battle that would test not only the pack's strength but also Aiden's resolve. The tension was palpable as Fenrir stood at the edge of the clearing, his towering figure bathed in the pale light of the full moon. His pack of rogues lingered in the shadows, their glowing eyes watching intently. Aiden could feel their collective hunger, a dark craving that sent shivers down his spine. Kai stepped forward, his presence radiating dominance. His beta Owen flanked him, ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. The rest of the pack formed a protective semicircle around Aiden. "This is your last warning," Kai growled, his tone a mix of authority and menace. "Leave or you'll regret stepping foot on my territory." Fenn's lips curled into a predatory smile. "You think I fear you, Alpha? I faced wolves far stronger than you and taken what I wanted, and tonight I'll take the Omega." Kai's growl rumbled through the clearing, his patience snapping like a twig. With a nod to Owen, the beta let out a sharp howl, signaling the pack to prepare for battle. The rogues attacked first, emerging from the shadows like phantoms. Claws and teeth glinted in the moonlight as they lunged at the pack. Kai was a blur of motion, his wolf form massive and powerful as he tore through their ranks. Aiden stayed at the center of the pack's formation, shielded by Owen and several warriors, but his heart raced as he watched the chaos unfold. He couldn't shake the feeling that this fight was about more than territory. It was a test of his purpose, his role in the prophecy. As the battle raged on, Aiden noticed Fenrir hanging back, his eyes fixed on him. There was a chilling intelligence in those eyes, a predator waiting for the perfect moment to strike. A rogue broke through the defensive line, charging straight for Aiden. Instinctively, Aiden raised his hands, a surge of energy bursting from his core. The rogue froze mid-lunge, yelping in surprise as a pulse of light sent it flying backward. The pack froze for a split second, stunned by what they had witnessed. "Aiden!" Kai's voice boomed through the clearing. "Stay close." Aiden nodded, his hands trembling. Whatever power the moon had bestowed upon him, it was both exhilarating and terrifying. Fenrir took advantage of the distraction, lunging at Kai with lethal precision. The two alphas collided with a force that shook the ground, their snarls through the forest. Kai was a fearsome opponent, his movements swift and calculated, but Fenrir was equally skilled, his strikes precise and unrelenting. The fight between them was a clash of titans, each blow carrying the weight of their respective packs. Aiden watched in horror as Kai faltered, a deep gash appearing on his shoulder. Without thinking, he rushed forward, ignoring Owen's protests. "Kai!" Aiden shouted, his voice carrying an unearthly resonance. Both alphas paused, their eyes locking onto Aiden. Fenrir smirk returned, his gaze filled with triumph. "So the Omega has courage," he sneered. "Let's see how far it takes you." Fenrir charged toward Aiden, but before he could reach him, Aiden felt a surge of heat rise within him. The air around him shimmered and a protective barrier of light erupted, forcing Fenrir back. Kai used the momentary distraction to launch a devastating attack, his claws raking across Feng's side. The rogue alpha roared in pain, retreating into the shadows. "This isn't over," Fenrir snarled before disappearing into the forest with his pack. The clearing was silent except for the labored breathing of the pack. Kai shifted back into his human form, blood dripping from his wounds. Aiden rushed to his side, tears streaming down his face. "You're hurt," Aiden said, his voice trembling. "I'll heal," Kai assured him. Though his voice was strained, he cued Aiden's face with a bloodied hand. "You were incredible. Whatever power you have, it saved us tonight." Owen approached, his expression grim. "Fenrir will come back. He won't stop until he gets what he wants." Aiden swallowed hard. "Then we need to be ready." Elder male stepped forward, His face lined with concern. Aiden, the light you summoned, it's a rare and ancient gift, but it comes with a cost. The more you use it, the more it binds you to the prophecy. What does that mean? Aiden asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Monk gaze softened. It means you must be prepared to face the trials ahead. The moon chose you for a reason, and it's up to you to discover why. As the pack regrouped, Aiden found himself drawn to Kai in ways he couldn't fully explain. The Alpha's strength, his unwavering loyalty, and the way he looked at Aiden as if he were the only thing that mattered. It made Aiden's heart ache with an intensity he never felt before. That night, as they lay together in the safety of their quarters, Kai held Aiden close, his hand resting protectively on Aiden's stomach. I don't know what the future holds, Kai murmured, his voice a low rumble, but I do know this: I will fight for you, for us, no matter what it takes. Aiden pressed a kiss to Kai's chest, his heart swelling with a mixture of love and fear. I'll fight too, we're in this together. The moonlight streamed through the window, bathing them in its gentle glow. It was a quiet reminder of the destiny they shared, the trials yet to come, and the unbreakable bond they were forging. The air in the Alpha's quarters was warm and quiet, save for the crackling of the fireplace of the bed, his fingers tracing the worn patterns of the quilt beneath him. The room smelled of cedar wood and faint traces of Kai's scent, earthy, grounding, and undeniably comforting. Kai entered moments later, his wounds freshly bandaged, his shirt discarded. His muscular frame was illuminated by the soft firelight, and Aiden couldn't help but stare. There was a vulnerability in the way Kai moved tonight, his usual confidence tempered by exhaustion. You should be resting, Aiden murmured, breaking the silence. Kai's lips twitched into a small smile as he approached, kneeling in front of Aiden. How can I rest when you're here looking so worried? Aiden frowned, brushing a hand against Kai's cheek. You keep getting hurt because of me. Kai caught Aiden's hand, his grip firm but gentle. No, I get hurt because I do anything to keep you safe. Don't ever think you're to blame for my choices. Their gazes locked, and for a moment the weight of the day seemed to F. Kai leaned forward, resting his forehead against Aiden. His voice was a whisper, rough yet tender. You mean more to me than you realize, Aiden. The space between them dissolved as Kai pressed his lips to Aiden's, the kiss soft at first as though seeking permission. Aiden melted into it, his hands tangling in Kai's hair. The kiss deepened, igniting a fire between them that neither could ignore. Kai's hands traveled to Aiden's waist, pulling him closer. Aiden let out a soft gasp as Kai's lips trailed down his neck, sending shivers through his body. I've wanted this, Kai murmured against Aiden's skin, his voice raw with emotion. I've wanted you for so long. Aiden's cheeks flushed, his heart pounding in his chest. I'm yours, Kai. I always have been. Kai lifted Aiden effortlessly, laying him back on the bed. The room seemed to blur as they gave in to the pull of their bond, their connection transcending words and read. Every touch, every kiss, every whispered promise felt like an unspoken vow emerging of their souls under the watchful gaze of the moon. The days after their union were blissful yet filled with a strange undercurrent of anticipation. Aiden couldn't shake the feeling that something within him had changed, though he couldn't quite place what it was. Kai noticed it too, his protective instincts kicking into overdrive. He rarely left Aiden's side, insisting on accompanying him even on routine tasks around the pack's territory. It wasn't until elder male requested to see Aiden privately that the pieces began to fall into place. Aiden sat across from male in the elder's small cluttered study. The older Wolf's gaze was sharp but kind as he studied Aiden carefully. You felt it, haven't you? Asked, his tone gentle but probing. Felt what? Aiden replied, though a part of him already knew. Leaned forward, his voice dropping to a reverent whisper, the life growing inside you. Aiden's breath caught in his throat. He stared at his mind raced in. That's not possible, he stammered. I mean, I'm an Omega. Interrupted, nodding. A rare Omega, blessed by the moon herself. You've been chosen to carry the next generation, a child born of prophecy and love. Aiden's hand instinctively moved to his stomach, his heart pounding. A child, he whispered. M's expression softened. Yes, and not just any child. This life is a symbol of hope, a bridge between the past and the future of our kind, but with it comes great responsibility. Aiden spent the rest of the day in a daze, his thoughts swirling. When he finally returned to Kai's quarters, he found the Alpha pacing the room, his worry evident. Aiden, Kai said, rushing to him. What's wrong? You've been quiet all day. Aiden hesitated, his hand trembling as he reached for Kai. There's something I need to tell you. Kai's eyes softened, his grip on Aiden's hand firm and reassuring. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. Aiden took a deep breath, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm pregnant, Kai. Kai froze, his eyes widening in shock. For a moment he didn't speak, and Aiden feared the worst. Then, to Aiden's surprise, Kai's expression softened, a mix of awe and joy spreading across his face. He pulled Aiden into his arms, holding him tightly. You're carrying our child, Kai whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Aiden nodded, tears streaming down his face. Yes, Kai cued Aiden's face, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. You've given me more than I ever thought I deserved, Aiden. I swear I'll protect you both with everything I have. The pack celebrated the news with cautious optimism, aware of the challenges that lay ahead. Fenn's threat still loomed, and the prophecy seemed more significant than ever. Aiden's pregnancy brought a new sense of purpose to the pack. It was no longer just about survival, it was about creating a future worth fighting for. As the months passed, Aiden and Kai grew closer than ever, their bond deepening with each shared moment together. They prepared for the arrival of their child, their hearts full of hope and determination. But the moon's blessing was a double-edged sword, and the trials they would face were only just beginning. The days following the revelation were a whirlwind of emotions for Aiden. Every glance at Kai filled him with warmth, but a nagging sense of unease lingered. He was carrying life, a fragile, precious life. The weight of the responsibility sometimes felt too much, especially with Fenrir's looming threat. Kai, on the other hand, had thrown himself into full protector mode. He rarely left Aiden's side, even during routine tasks. His overprotectiveness often led to amusing but heartfelt arguments. You don't need to follow me to the greenhouse, Kai, Aiden huffed one morning as they walked through the pack's gardens. Kai crossed his arms, his towering frame blocking Aiden's path. And what if something happens? You're not just you anymore, you're carrying our future. Aiden rolled his eyes but couldn't suppress the smile tugging at his lips. I think I can manage picking herbs without an entourage. Kai stepped closer, his eyes softening. Humor me, okay, just let be here for you. Aiden's leaning into Kai's chest. Fine, but if you keep fussing I might start charging you for the privilege. Kai laughed, the sound reverberating through Aiden like a soothing melody. As the weeks turned into months, Aiden began to notice changes in his body. His senses were heightened, his appetite fluctuated, and he often found himself exhausted by the simplest tasks. Yet there was also a strange sense of peace, a quiet knowing that the life within him was thriving. One evening Aiden sat by the fire, a blanket draped over his shoulders. He placed a hand on his abdomen, feeling a faint flutter. His breath caught and tears welled in his eyes. Kai entered the room carrying a tray of food. Aiden, what's wrong? Aiden looked up, his face glowing with wonder. I felt them move, Kai, the baby, they moved. Kai froze, then quickly set the tray down and knelt beside Aiden. His large calloused hand joined Aiden's on his abdomen, his expression a mix of awe and disbelief. Are you sure? Kai asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Aiden nodded, tears spilling over. I'm sure. Kai's eyes shimmered as he pressed a kiss to Aiden's forehead. You're incredible, he murmured. Both of you. The pack too had rallied around Aiden, eager to support their future alpha heir. The Omega healers worked tirelessly to ensure Aiden's health, crafting herbal remedies and preparing the birthing den. Lila, Aiden's closest friend, had practically moved into the alpha quarters. She hovered like a protective older sister, fussing over Aiden's meals and rest. You've got to eat more, Lla said one afternoon, setting a plate of roasted vegetables in front of Aiden. I'm eating plenty, Aiden replied, though his protest was half-hearted. Lla raised an eyebrow. Not for two, you're not now. Eat, Aiden laughed but complied, grateful for her unwavering care. Despite the pack's joy, the shadow of Fenrir loomed larger than ever. Scouts reported increased sightings of Fenn's rogue wolves near their borders, and tensions ran high. Kai spent his days strategizing with the pack's warriors and his nights keeping vigil beside Aiden. You can't keep running yourself ragged, Aiden said one night as Kai returned from yet another meeting. Kai sank into the bed beside him, pulling Aiden close. I can't afford to rest, not when Fenrir is out there. You need to be strong, Kai, for me, for our baby. Aiden's voice was firm but his touch was gentle. As he stroked Kai's cheek, Kai sighed, his resolve softening. You're right, as always. Aiden smiled, resting his head against Kai's chest. We face whatever comes together. You don't have to carry this burden alone. One night Aiden was visited by a vivid dream. He stood in a moonlit forest cradling a small child with piercing golden eyes. The moon herself seemed to speak, her voice echoing in his Mind this child will unite the fractured packs and bring peace to the land, but the path will be fraught with sacrifice. Aiden woke with a start, his heart racing. Kai stirred beside him, his hand immediately reaching for Aiden's. What is it? Kai asked, his voice groggy with sleep. I had a dream, Aiden whispered. He recounted the vision, his voice trembling. Kai listened intently, his jaw tightening. Then we'll do whatever it takes to protect our child and fulfill this prophecy. Aiden nodded, though the weight of the moon's words lingered in his heart. As Aiden's pregnancy progressed, the pack faced unexpected challenges. A harsh winter descended, early food became scarce, and unattending. You shouldn't push yourself, Kai warned as Aiden prepared for the meeting. I'm part of this pack too, Kai, and I won't sit idly by while they suffer. Kai sighed but relented, his respect for Aiden's determination evident at the meeting. Aiden's presence inspired the pack. His words were calm and reassuring, his bond with Kai a beacon of hope. We are stronger together, Aiden said, his voice steady despite the tension in the room, and we will overcome this, not just for ourselves but for the future we're building. The pack rallied behind them, their unity a powerful force against the growing darkness. One cold morning, as the pack prepared for another border patrol, Aiden felt a sharp pain in his abdomen. He froze, his breath hitching. Kai was at his side in an instant. What's wrong? Aiden clutched his stomach, his eyes wide. I think it's starting. Kai's heart raced, but he forced himself to stay calm. He scooped Aiden into his arms and barked orders to the nearby pack members. Get the healer, prepare the den. The pack sprang into action, their collective focus shifting to the arrival of the future heir. As Aiden was carried to the birthing den, his grip on Kai's hand tightened. Don't leave me, he whispered, his voice trembling. Kai kissed Aiden's forehead, his voice steady and reassuring. I'm right here, Aiden, always. The birthing den was alive with a mixture of tension and anticipation. Omega healers moved with practiced precision, their hands steady but their eyes darting nervously. Despite their experience, this was no ordinary birth. It was the arrival of the Alpha's heir, a child destined to fulfill the moon's prophecy. Kai stayed glued to Aiden's side, his powerful hand gripping Aiden's smaller one. His heart thundered in his chest as he watched the love of his life struggle through the pains of labor. He felt helpless, a sensation entirely foreign to him. You're doing amazing, Aiden, he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. Aiden shot him dry, exhausted smile. I'm going to remind you of this when I'm bossing you around later, Kai chuckled, leaning down to press a kiss to Aiden's damp forehead. Deal. The room filled with the rhythmic hum of healers chanting an ancient prayer for strength and protection. Candles flickered, their soft glow casting ethereal shadows on the walls. The process was long and arduous. Aiden's body, though strong, was pushed to its limits as the hours dragged on. His usually pale complexion was flushed, and beads of sweat glistened on his forehead. I can't, Aiden panted, his head lolling back against the pillow. I don't think I can do this. Kai's heart clenched. He knelt by Aiden's side, brushing damp strands of hair from his face. Yes, you can, he said firmly, his golden eyes locking onto Aiden's. You're the strongest person I know, Aiden, and I'm right here with you. Lla, who had taken it upon herself to act as Aiden's emotional anchor, chimed in from the corner. You've got this, Aiden. Just think of how much you'll have over Kai once you remind him what you went through to bring his kid into the world. Aiden let out a weak laugh. That's motivation, I guess. After what felt like an eternity, a sharp piercing cry filled the room. The tension evaporated in an instant, replaced by an overwhelming sense of relief and joy. A healer carefully wrapped the newborn in a soft white cloth before you are turning to Kai and Aiden, your child, she said softly, presenting the tiny bundle. Aiden's hands trembled as he reached out to take the baby. Tears streamed down his face as he cradled the small warm body against his chest. The baby's golden eyes blinked up at him, already so much like their father's. They're perfect, Aiden whispered, his voice breaking. Kai knelt beside him, his own eyes misty as he gently stroked the baby's cheek. Our little miracle, he murmured. Arrival spread quickly through the pack. Despite the late hour, the entire community gathered outside the Alpha quarters, eager to celebrate the birth of their future leader. Kai stepped out onto the balcony, the baby nestled securely in his arms. The crowd erupted into cheers, their howls of joy echoing through the night. My family and I thank you for your unwavering support, Kai announced, his voice carrying over the noise. This child is a symbol of our strength, unity, and the bright future we're building together. The pack howled in response, their voices blending into a harmonious melody of loyalty and love parenthood brought its own set of challenges for Kai and Aiden. The one strong and independent Aiden found himself overwhelmed by the constant demands of caring for a newborn. Kai too faced his own struggles balancing his responsibilities as alpha with his role as a father was no easy defeat, yet he found joy in the small moments, the way the baby gripped his finger, the sound of their laughter, the peaceful expression on Aiden's face as he rocked their child to sleep. One night as they sat by the fire with the baby asleep in Aiden's arms, Kai broke the comfortable silence. "You were incredible," he said, his voice filled with awe. Aiden looked up, his exhaustion momentarily forgotten. "We both were," he replied with a small smile. "This little one wouldn't be here without you." Kai leaned over, pressing a gentle kiss to Aiden's lips. "I love you," he murmured. "I love you too," Aiden replied, his voice soft but unwavering. Just as life began to settle into a new rhythm, the pack received troubling news. Fen's rogues had been spotted closer than ever, their numbers growing. Kai knew that their child's birth had made the pack both stronger and more vulnerable. He tightened security around the territory, organizing patrols and training sessions. Aiden too refused to stay ID despite Kai's protests. He began working with the healers to prepare emergency supplies and evacuation plans. "We can't take any chances," Aiden said firmly when Kai tried to dissuade him. "This is about more than just us now, it's about our entire family, our entire pack." Kai nodded, his pride in Aiden outweighing his fear. "We'll face whatever comes." Together one night as the moon bathed the Peace territory in her silvery light, Aiden stood by the nursery window cradling their baby. The child stirred, their tiny hand reaching out as if trying to grasp the moon herself. Aiden's heart swelled with a mixture of love and trepidation. The moon's prophecy echoed in his mind, a constant reminder of the destiny that awaited their family. "We protect you," Aiden whispered, pressing a kiss to the baby's forehead. "No matter what." Kai appeared behind him, wrapping his arms around Aiden and their child. Together they gazed out at the moonlit forest, ready to face whatever the future held. The moonlit pack settled into an uneasy calm. In the months following the birth of Kai and Aiden's child, the joy of new life was palpable, yet an undercurrent of tension rippled through the territory. Fen's rogues were a growing threat, their presence a looming shadow on the pack's otherwise bright future. Aiden had recovered from the trials of childbirth, and though his body still bore the marks of the ordeal, his spirit was stronger than ever. Parenthood had awakened a fierce protectiveness in him, a determination to ensure their child and their pack would thrive. Kai, ever the vigilant alpha, doubled his efforts to fortify their borders. The weight of leadership bore heavily on his shoulders, but he carried it with unwavering resolve. Aiden was no longer content to remain in the background as the alpha's mate and the mother of their heir. He knew he had a role to play in the pack's survival. One morning, as the first rays of sunlight filtered through their bedroom window, Aiden turned to Kai. "I want to be more involved," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Kai raised an eyebrow. "More involved, Aiden? You already do so much taking care of our child, supporting the pack." "That's not enough," Aiden interrupted. "I want to help prepare for what's coming. I can train with the healers, help organize supplies, even learn basic combat if I need to." Kai's golden eyes softened as he regarded his mate. "You're incredible, you know that," he murmured, reaching out to cup Aiden's cheek. "But I don't want you to put yourself in danger." "I won't be in danger," Aiden insisted, "but I can't just sit by and do nothing. This is our family's fight, our pack's fight. I need to do my part." After a long pause, Kai nodded. "All right, we'll figure this out together." As their child grew, it became evident that they were no ordinary P. By the time they were a few months old, they exhibited traits far beyond their age. Keen senses, unusual strength, and an aura of calm authority that mirrored Kai's. One evening as Aiden rocked the baby to sleep, he noticed a faint glow emanating from their tiny bodies. Startled, he called for Kai. "What's happening?" Aiden whispered as Kai entered the room. Kai's eyes widened as he took in the scene. "It's the moon's blessing," he said, his voice filled with reverence. "Our child is truly special." The healers confirmed that the baby's unique traits were a sign of their destiny. "They are the moon chosen one," elder explained, "a leader who will guide the pack to a new era of peace and prosperity." The peace was shattered one fateful night when Fen's rogues launched a surprise attack on the pack's territory. The alarm bells rang out and the pack sprang into action. Kai was at The forefront of the battle, his powerful wolf form tearing through the rogues with unmatched ferocity. Aiden, though terrified, stayed in the safety of the Alpha's quarters with their child, organizing a triage station for the wounded. The fight was brutal, but the Moonlit Pack's unity and strength proved insurmountable. By dawn the rogues were driven back, though not without losses. During the chaos, a rogue managed to breach the Alpha's quarters. Aiden, holding their child, stood his ground, his heart pounded as the rogue advanced, its yellow eyes gleaming with malice. "You won't touch my family," Aiden growled, his voice steady despite his fear. In a moment of instinct, Aiden's wolf form emerged, smaller than Kai's but no less fierce. He lunged at the rogue, protecting their child with everything he had. The fight was short but intense, ending with Aiden standing victorious, his body trembling but his spirit unbroken. When Kai returned bloodied and exhausted, he found Aiden cradling their unharmed child, his eyes filled with pride and love as he embraced them both. "You're amazing," Kai whispered, his voice thick with emotion. The attack solidified the pack's belief in the prophecy. The Moonlit Pack began to rebuild, stronger and more united than ever. Aiden's bravery earned him newfound respect among the pack. No longer just the Alpha's mate, he was seen as a leader in his own right, a symbol of resilience and courage. Kai too grew in his role as both Alpha and father. He balanced the demands of leadership with the joys of family life, finding strength in the love he shared with Aiden and their child. Years passed and the pack flourished under Kai and Aiden's guidance. Their child grew into a strong and compassionate leader, embodying the best qualities of both parents. As the Moonlit Pack gathered under the full moon for a celebration, Kai and Aiden stood side by side, their hands entwined. They had faced countless challenges, but their love and unity had carried them through. "We've come so far," Aiden murmured, looking up at Kai with a soft smile. Kai leaned down, pressing a kiss to Aiden's temple. "And we'll keep going." Get as the pack howled their song of triumph and joy, the moon cast her light over them, a silent witness to the bond that had transformed not just two souls but an entire pack. Hey everyone, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss an update. Your support means a lot and helps this channel grow. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.